I worked in the radiology department at a hospital in Cardiff, Wales, UK, for about 3 years as an admin and clerical officer before getting a promotion to work in medicine. During these 3 years, I saw a lot of things, ranging from patients dying in the MRI scanners to patients having an X-ray after inserting a meat thermometer into their urethra. Nights always seemed the craziest. One time, a patient came in with armed police after an altercation involving a knife in the middle of the city center. Just so happened the person he had the altercation with was also having an X-ray. This caused a second altercation right in front of me. Chairs were thrown, a trash bin or two, and then a wheelchair. I have seen things, some funny, some stressful, some sad, and many bonkers. But this one night was something scary. I would start a night shift at about 7 p.m. and work until 08:30 the next morning. This was the standard night shift for our department. We would usually do 3 nights in a row before having 4 days off. After the 3rd night, you were ready to sleep for a week. The strange thing was, this was my first night of the 3, so I was not at all tired. It started off normal. I arrived at the department, took over from the day staff, and logged into my PC. During this time, we usually would set up our phones or tablets to watch movies or the latest TV series, as there would be a lot of downtime between patients. As I said, the first few hours were nothing interesting, just your average run-of-the-mill night in radiology. Then it came to my break. Before I tell you more, I should probably explain the layout of this hospital. It's the largest in Wales, a teaching hospital, and it's pretty old. The best way to get from A to B in this hospital is through what we call the tunnels, or the catacombs. These consist of very dimly lit corridors, old abandoned rooms, tunnels, and other creepy, decrepit areas. The morgue is also found in these corridors. It's not a nice place to be during the day, let alone in the middle of the night, but it's the quickest way to get places if you're staff. There have always been rumors and mumblings of strange things happening in these tunnels. Some people say they saw ghosts in old-fashioned porter uniforms taking wheelchairs to pick up patients. Others say they have seen shadows following them from the corner of their eyes. One person even claimed they were attacked by someone wearing an old nurse's uniform from the 70s. This place is creepy even at the best of times, but for me, it never really fazed me. I had been down there hundreds of times before, and the worst experience up to this point was having a sluice pipe drip human waste on my head. That, in itself, was a horror show. But tonight would be something altogether different, and maybe not even of this physical world. As I said before, it was a very quiet night. I had been watching the latest series of One Piece, because I'm a geek. During my downtime, a radiographer, or radiology technician, for my American friends, came to take over and cover me for my break. I decided to go to the 5th floor, where the sanctuary, multi-faith chapel, was located. On a night shift, it was one of the most peaceful places in the hospital. But to get there, I had to walk through the tunnels to reach the nearest elevator. I set off on my journey, which would usually take about 15 minutes. I scanned my keycard at the main entrance to the tunnels and then proceeded to walk through. 2 minutes in, I started to feel like someone was walking behind me. It being a busy hospital, and the tunnels basically acting like the highway, I didn't think anything of it. Suddenly, I heard panting, like someone was trying to catch their breath after an intense run. I then turned around to check and saw nothing. A bit strange, but I thought it was nothing. Maybe just one of the pipes above my head creaking, or a generator pumping. So, I carried on walking, but I kept feeling like someone or something was watching me and was walking behind me. Out of sheer confusion and fear, I missed my turn towards the elevators and found myself in a large section of the tunnels that I had never been in before. It was littered with old stretchers, beds, hospital furniture, and equipment. Some of this stuff was over 50 years old, maybe older, just left to decay in a dark, smelly, decrepit, and dusty corridor. This was starting to really creep me out, because in all of this confusion, I realized I was lost. It almost felt like I had fallen into the back rooms. Everything looked the same. I could feel a tightening in my chest and the start of a panic attack. I remember clutching my chest and running down a corridor, trying to find a signpost or something to tell me where I was. The sense that something was watching me got stronger. Suddenly I felt something hit my arm with force, almost like someone using a baseball bat. I remember falling to the ground, pulling myself across the floor towards the cold, dusty wall, and looking around frantically, trying to find an explanation for what had just hit me. Then something caught my eye. It was almost like a black mist with glowing red eyes. It was about 20 meters away from me, just hovering in the middle of the corridor. Was this the thing that had been stalking me the entire time? I got back up and sprinted. I ran down what felt like 100 different corridors until I found a housekeeper. He asked me what was wrong because I looked pale, but I couldn't get any words out. He then grabbed me by the arms with a firm grip and said, "Did you see it too?" That was the last time I ever stepped foot in the tunnels. To this day, I hear rumors of strange things. I'm not sure what I saw that night. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was stressed. Maybe it was something else. Why else would the janitor ask me if I had seen it too? What else is down there? Well, I can tell you one thing for sure. I won't be going to find out. Thanks for taking the time to read this. I don't remember my exact age when this happened, but I remember it pretty vividly. I was maybe between 10 and 14 years old. For reference, my room, which was really an extra living room, was close to my driveway. My driveway entered off the road, led to my backyard, made a small circle, and connected back to itself. It wasn't a big circle, but more of a long driveway. In my room, there was a window facing the road, 2 windows on the right wall along with a door that led outside, and 1 window opposite the road which faced my backyard with the circle pavement. On the left wall was a door that led to my kitchen and living room. The way my house was built made it so every other room was on the opposite side of the house. There was also a factory across the road from where I lived. For reference, I don't know if you guys believe in ghosts or not, but my house was haunted, according to my family. These 2 ghosts that my older brother was seeing were apparently messing with him. I forget if that whole situation happened before this or not. Another weird thing my little brother told me years ago. One day my mother told my little brother to go to his room and put some clothes away. The lights were off in his room at the time. As he was putting the clothes away, he said he looked down to open the drawer and saw some black shoes as if someone was standing beside him. He looked up and told me he saw a man in a black hat with a black face. He ran to my mom and told her what happened, but she did not believe him. The room where this happened to my little brother was the same room where my older brother slept and saw one of the ghosts that messed with him. I usually slept with the lights off when I was younger, which led to me waking up one night to the lights being off. This was normal, but being a young preteen, I was scared of the fact that I was on the opposite side of my house. So, I always tried to have a phone within arm's reach in case anything ever happened. A few seconds after I woke up, I started to hear metal being dragged right outside my room door that led outside. From what I heard, it sounded like it started from the beginning of my right wall, which was the beginning of the circle pavement in my backyard, and went down toward the driveway. I instantly froze, too scared to move a muscle. A few seconds passed, and then I heard an evil laughter. I know it sounds dumb, but I'm so serious. It continued to go down the side of the wall, sounding like someone was dragging a shovel on the concrete and laughing. I didn't move a muscle, frozen and unsure of what to do. In the back of my mind, I wanted to move and peek out the window to see what it was, but my imagination was picturing some evil person or thing that would look right at me when I peeked out the blinds. It continued to the point where it got to my windows facing the driveway. I was still frozen. I imagined that whatever it was currently facing the road a few feet in front of my window. And I promise you guys, the sound stopped. An even more evil laugh happened, and then the sound of a vibration started to the point where I could feel it. It almost sounded like a portal or something, which I know makes no sense, but at that time I really believed that could be a possibility, and I honestly still believe that vibration was caused by whatever was outside my house that day. As this was going on, I tried to think of the most reasonable explanations that could be causing this. I imagined maybe it was the factory across the street, but I've never heard the vibration again after that day. The vibration lasted a few seconds along with the laugh, and then almost instantly both the vibration and the laugh stopped. I ended up not moving and eventually fell back asleep, trying to understand what I had just heard. The following morning, I asked my parents if they had been outside at night, and they said no. That was weird to me because I knew I heard something. Now, I know this sounds made up, or that there could be some reasonable explanation for this, but I have been unable to understand what really happened that night. I know I didn't dream this. I honestly believe that night, something out of this world was walking outside my house. I know this is not the scariest story, but it's a story that I think about every once in a while. It really makes me believe there's a lot more to this world than we know. "18-year-old female here. I had a terrifying and traumatic experience when I was only 12 years old. It was nighttime, maybe around 9 p.m., and I was completely home alone. My family had been at a county carnival for a couple of hours and wouldn't be back until later. I don't remember why I decided to stay behind, but I did. The house was eerily quiet, and most lights were off except for the hallway light where I was sitting. For better understanding, my bedroom was adjacent to the laundry room, and my older sister's room was directly across from mine. There was about a 2-foot wide wall separating the door to my room from the door to the laundry room. I was sitting with my back against that wall while on the floor, playing some kind of game on my little iPod, when all of a sudden, I heard an explosive bang on the wall in my sister's room. I quickly jumped up and ran into my room. I stood there silently, staring into her room, trying to understand what had happened. I realized that nothing had fallen, and nobody was in there. My heart was racing, and I continued to stand there with my eyes wide open. That's when I heard the second loud bang in the same spot. It sounded like it was coming from inside the walls. I jumped into my bed and threw my covers over me. I immediately called my mom to come home as soon as she could. I sat there for what felt like forever, just waiting to hear that horrific noise again. My family came home about 30 minutes later, and I was still in my bed hiding. They looked around everywhere and saw no sign of damage, a fallen object, or a break-in. I was confused, but not surprised. Stuff like this was pretty common in this house, but it never got less terrifying. A few days later, my aunt visited our house to check it out. She is an extremely spiritual person and does energy work, spiritual therapy, and healing for a living. She stood in my sister's room for a little while and told us that there were 1 or 2 evil entities within our walls, possibly trying to get out. I believed this because I never told anyone that I heard it come from inside the walls.